Hello students, welcome to my English class 9, chapter 10, Alexander Selkirk, the poem by William Cowper. You see, Alexander Selkirk is an interesting poem. In this poem, we will see and we will learn that man is a social animal. Man can't live without society. Loneliness is certainly a curse. Living without friends makes life like a hell. A man who is on Excel craves for his best friends and made have some happiness moments of his past life. Man can't live without his friends or without society. So this poem is something different and about the sorrow and suffering and the feelings of or feelings or emotions of Alexander Selkirk, who was in a no man island. Okay, let us see and discuss the poem Alexander Selkirk by William Cowper. Alexander Selkirk is an interesting poem by William Cowper. In this poem, we know that this poem is about Alexander Selkirk, who was in an isolated island. We know to live in a lonely island or lonely place is very painful, and let us discuss in details the poem. First, let us know something about the poet. We know William Cowper is the poet, was an English poet. He belonged to England. One of his best poems is a well-known poem containing the reflections of Alexander Selkirk. We know the poem reflects the freedom of his spirit in a lonely island, you see. And let us discuss a few lines about the poem. Alexander Selkirk was a Scottish privateer and Royal Navy officer. He swam to a lonely island after a shipwreck. He spent 4 years and 4 months in an uninhabited Juan Fernandez Island in the South Pacific Ocean. You know, once again, that Alexander Selkirk spent 4 years and 4 months in a lonely island, that is Juan Fernandez Island. Juan Fernandez Island, which is in the South Pacific Ocean. That was a lonely island. That was a no man's island. Only the beasts and the birds lived there. A man who is on Excel craves for his best friends and some happy moments of his past life. This poem deals with the bitter feelings on abandoned person. Okay, so let us discuss the poem line by line. First stanza of the poem, Alexander Selkirk, stanza 1. I am monarch of all I survey, my right there is none to dispute. From the centre all around to the sea, I am lord of the fowl and the brute. O solitude, where are the charms that the sages have seen in thy face? Better dwell in the midst of alarms than reign in this horrible place. You see, I here stands for the poet, the sailor, Alexander Selkirk. I am monarch of all I survey. That means the poet or Alexander Selkirk says that I am the monarch, I am the supreme ruler of all I survey, means the lonely island. This lonely island. He was escaped, he was in a lonely island for 4 years and 4 months where no man was there. That lonely island was very painful for him. So it was his feelings. He said, I am monarch of all I survey. Means I am the supreme ruler of this lonely island. My right there is none to dispute. No, there is no one to challenge my power. No one in this world who will fight with me for my power, for that right. From the center all around to the sea, from the center all around to the sea, I am lord of the fowl and the brute. That means he is the supreme ruler of birds and animals of that lonely island. No man was there. and only the birds and animals, fowls and brutes. And so from that island, the entire island, only the birds and the animals are there, beasts are there, and he was the supreme power, the Lord, the supreme Lord. There is no one in this world who will fight with him for that right. Oh solitude, oh solitude, where are the charms that the sages have seen in thy face? O solitude means the pleasure in lonely life. You know, the sages, the Indian sages, go to the mountains, to the Himalayas. Why? They need or they want a lonely place, a lonely life away from the crowds of men. What do they get? And what is the pleasure living in that lonely life? The oh solitude. Where are the charms that the sages have seen in thy face? You know, the sages they go to the lonely places. They are pleased with the loneliness. They are away from the crowds of people or crowds of men. So where is that peace? Where are the charms? And better dwell, the poet or the Alexander Selkirk, the sailor said that better dwell in the midst of alarms than reign in this horrible place. Alexander Selkirk, or the sailor, says that it is horrible to rule in this lonely island. But it is better to live or to accept the troubles and anxieties living in this society. Okay, so this is the first stanza of the poem. In the first stanza of the poem, the sailor Alexander Selkirk says that he is the sole monarch of the lonely island, and there is no one in the world who will fight with him for that right, for his power. For no one is there to dispute his power. He is the supreme ruler of the birds and animals of that lonely island. And wise men and philosophers say that there is pleasure in living a lonely life away from the crowds of men. So Alexander Selkirk could not find that it was. He thought to Alexander Selkirk, but Selkirk cannot find any joy in his loneliness. He feels and realizes that it is better to accept the troubles and challenges of life and anxieties living in the society than to rule that horrible lands. Okay, so come to the second stanza of the poem. I am out of humanity's reach. I am out of humanity's reach. I must finish my journey alone. Never hear the sweet music of speech. I start at the sound of my own. The beasts that roam over the plain, my form with indifference see. They are so unacquainted with man, their tameness is shocking to me. I am out of humanity's reach. I am out of humanity's reach. I must finish my journey alone. Alexander Selkirk cannot hope to return to mankind once again. I must minimize. I must say, out of humanity's reach, I must finish my journey alone. That means Alexander Selkirk cannot hope to return to mankind. He imagines that he must end his life on that lonely island because that was lonely island, a lonely, and he can't imagine. Okay, so I am out of humanity's reach. I must finish my journey alone. I must finish my journey alone. Never hear the sweet music of speech. Never hear the sweet music of speech. I start at the sound of my own. I start at the sound of my own. Okay. He is unable to hear the sweet speech of man. He is unable to hear the sweet speech of man. So you see, I am out of humanity's reach. I must finish my journey alone. The Alexander Selkirk was hopeless. He cannot hope to return to mankind. He imagines that He must end his life on that only lonely island. He could not come back to his home, to his family, to his society, to his country. Never hear the sweet music of speech. I start at the sound of my own. He is unable to hear the sweet voice of man, and his surprise startled at the sound of my own. He is surprised at his own voice. He startled as at his own voice. He was unable to, he could not listen to the sound of the voice of any man. The beasts that roam over the plain, the beasts that roam over the plain, my form with indifference, my form with indifference. It seems strange to him, it seems strange to him as he has not spoken to man for a long time, for a long time. You see, the beasts that roam over the plain, the beasts that roam over the plain, my form with indifference see. It seems strange to him as he has not spoken to man for a long time. And they are so unacquainted with man. And the animals, the birds and animals of that lonely island were so unacquainted with man because they had never seen a human form. That their tameness is shocking to me. The animals never fear him as they do not know the strength of man. Okay? So from the second stanza of the poem, we come to know that Selkirk cannot hope to return to mankind. He was hopeless. He imagines that he must end his life on that only lonely island. There was no hope because he stayed there for 4 years and 4 months, a long time. He is unable to hear the sweet speech of man. He cannot listen the sweet music or voice of man. He is surprised at his own voice because he startled at his own voice. He could hear the only his own voice. It seems strange to him as he has not spoken to man for a long time. There is no one that he was in that no man's island. The animals never fear him as they do not know the strength of man. Okay, let us see stanza 3. Society, friendship, and love divinely bestowed upon man. Oh, had I the wings of a dove, how soon would I taste you again? My sorrows I then might assuage in the ways of religion and truth, might learn from the wisdom of age, and be cheered by the sallage of youth, and be cheered by the sallage of youth. Society, friendship, and love divinely bestowed upon man. He says that society, friendship, and love are the divine gifts given to man. Man can't live without society, without friendship, without love. They are divinely gifts. They are divine gifts and they are given to man. Oh, had I the wings of a dove, how soon would I taste you again? He thinks, Alexander Selkirk thinks if he had the wings of a dove, he would fly across the ocean and see the faces of his friends and relatives in his native land. My sorrows I then might assuage, my sorrows I then might assuage in the ways of religion and truth, in the ways of religion and truth. As a result, his sorrows and suffering should be reduced. As a result, his sorrows and suffering should be reduced and relaxed, and he would spend his days happily following religion and truth. Okay, my sorrows I then might assuage. My sorrows I then might assuage in the ways of religion and truth. As a result, his sorrows and sufferings would be reduced and relaxed, and he would spend his day happily following the religion and truth. If he would go back to his native land, he would follow the ways of religion and truth, might learn from the wisdom of his, might learn from the wisdom of his, and be cheered by the sallage of youth. He might learn the wise things, he might learn wise things from the wise men and spend his days happily with the young. He might learn, he might learn wise things, might learn from the wisdom of age and be cheered by the sage of youth. He might learn wise things. Where? From the wise men and spend his days happily with the young. Might learn from the wisdom of age and be cheered by the sage of youth. Okay? My dear friends, from the third stanza of the poem, we came to know that Alexander Selkirk says that society, friendship, and love are the divine gifts given to man. He thinks if he had the wings of a dove, he would cross the ocean and see the faces of his friends and relatives. As a result, his sorrows and sufferings would be reduced and relaxed, and he would spend his days happily following religion and truth. He might learn wise things from the wise men and spend his days happily with the young. Okay, so let us see stanza 4. A winds that have made me your sport convey to this desolate shore some cordial enduring report of a land I shall visit no more. My friends, do they now and then send a wish or a thought after me? Oh, tell me, I yet have a friend, though a friend I have never to see, have never to see. Ye winds that have made me your sport, convey to this desolate shore some cordial enduring report of a land I shall visit no more. Alexander Selkirk is completely disheartened for his loneliness. Is really disheartened, extremely sorry, unhappy, mourning. He has addressed the winds to listen to him as he has no friend, no relatives to listen to him. And he thought that the wind was the only friend. He requests the winds to bring the good news of his place, of his native place, which he can never return or visit again. My friends, do they now and then, my friends, do they now and then send a wish or a thought after me? My friends, do they now and then send a wish or a thought after me? Oh, tell me, I yet have a friend, though a friend I am never to see. He also appeals the winds to convey his message to his near and dear ones whom he can never see. He also appeals the winds to convey his message to his near and dear ones whom he can never see. He wants to know if his friends remember and wish to see him. He wants to know if his friends remember him and wish to see him. Okay. From the fourth stanza of the poem, we come to know that Alexander Selkirk is completely disheartened for his loneliness in that no man island. He has addressed the winds to listen to him because there was no human form, no one to listen to him. He requests the winds to bring the good news of his native land, which can never visit again. He also appeals the winds. He also appeals the winds to convey his message to his near and dear ones whom he can never see. He wants to know if his friends remember and wish to see him. Okay, let us see stanza 5. How fleet is a glance of the mind compared with the speed of its flight. The tempest itself lags behind and the swift winged arrows of light. When I think of my own native land, in a moment I seem to be there, but alas, recollection at hand soon hurries me back to despair. How fleet is a glance of mind compared with the speed of its flight. He feels that the movement of mind is very swift, very fast. It visits the whole world in a moment. The speed of mind is the fastest compared with the speed of its flight. The tempest itself lags behind and the swift winged arrows of light. You see, the arrows The speed of arrows and the tempest also lag behind. The movement of mind is swifter than the movement of wind and light. Wind and light and tempest and light, you see. Because at the moment we think the movement of mind is very swift. You can visit in our mind the whole world in a moment. So the speed of mind, the movement of mind is the fastest. When I think of my own native land, when I think of my own native land, in a moment I seem to be there. Whenever he thinks of his native land, he feels as if he is present there. Okay, but alas, recollection at hand soon hurries me back to despair. But when he realizes his present position, his heart is filled with despair because he could not go back to his native land, to his friends, to his relatives, to his society, to his country, to his own land. From the fifth stanza of the poem, we come to know that Alexander Selkirk feels that the movement of the mind is very swift and it visits the whole world in a moment. The movement of mind is swifter than the movement of wind and light. Whenever he thinks of his native land, he feels as if he is present there. But when he realizes his present position, his heart is filled with despair because he thought he was hopeless that he could no more come back, return to his own land. Come to the sixth stanza of the poem. But the she fowl is gone to her nest, the beast is laid down in his lair. Even here is a season of rest, and I to my cabin repair. There's mercy in every place, and mercy, encouraging thought, gives even affliction a grace, and reconciles man to his Lord. But the she-fowl is gone to her nest, the beast is laid down in his lair. At last he thinks that it is unwise to think all these things as it brings unhappiness. But the sea fowl is gone to her nest, the beast is laid down in his lair because it is going to be evening, and a bird is going to its her nest, and the beast is laid down in its shade. And even here is a season of rest, and I to my cabin repair. The birds and beasts have taken rest in their respective resting places. So he feels that it is proper to have take rest and repair his cabin or his room. There is mercy in everywhere. There is mercy in everywhere, every place, and mercy, encouraging thought, gives even affliction a glance, and reconciles man to his lot, to his lot. So he feels it is proper to have his rest. He hopes that God is omnipotent. There is a God is omnipresent and sees the sorrows and sufferings of human beings. God will definitely remove his plight as he is very kind and merciful. There is mercy in every place. You see, when man is hopeless, there is a hope from God, a help from God. So Alexander Selkirk also has that feelings. He says that God is omnipresent, God is everywhere, God can see everything. God can see or sees sorrows and sufferings. There is mercy in every place and mercy. Encouraging thought that came to his mind, only thought that gives even affliction a grace. God gives and forgives. God gives and forgives, gives even affliction a grace, and reconciles man to his Lord. So God is Almighty, omnipresent. He will definitely remove his plight, his sorrow and suffering, and he will help he will be very kind and merciful to him. You see, from the last stanza of the poem, we come to know that Alexander Selkirk thinks that it is unwise to think all these things as it brings unhappiness. The birds and beasts have taken rest in their respective resting places, so he feels it proper to have his rest. He hopes that God is omnipresent, God is almighty, and that there is only help from God or God's mercy. And God sees the sorrows and suffering for human beings. And God will definitely remove his plight, his sorrow and suffering, as God is very kind and merciful. Okay, so I think you have understood the poem. Let us do the activity one. Answer the following questions. Who is the poet of the poem? William Cowper is the poet of the poem. Who is the monarch there? Alexander Selkirk is the monarch there. How does the poet describe the island? The poet describes that the island is beyond human's reach. Only beasts and birds keeping roaming over the plain. Question number 4. Why were the beasts unfamiliar with Selkirk? The beasts were unfamiliar with Selkirk because for the first time they daily discovered a human appearance in that lonely island. What are the divine qualities bestowed upon man? Society, friendship, and love are the divine qualities bestowed upon man. Why does Selkirk like wisdom of age? Selkirk likes the wisdom of age because after reaching his native land, he will learn valuable things from the old persons. What did Selkirk appeal to the wind? Selkirk appealed to the wind to convey his solitariness, loneliness to his friends and relatives, those are living in his native land. What hurried him back to despair? His sweet and happy thought of his native land of past experiences hurried him back to despair. What did he want to do when evening approached? When evening approached, Selkirk wanted to return to his cabin to take rest. What does he think about God? He thinks that God sees the sorrow and suffering of human beings because he is omnipresent. He is present everywhere. He will definitely remove his plight because he is very kind. Okay, I think you have a clear-cut idea. Let you read the poem, recite the poem again and again. Here is, see and watch the video again and again. I think you will learn and understand the poem Alexander Selkirk. Thank you very much.